Two college students, James and Petra, are spending some quiet time together. As they are kissing, Petra mentions she has to leave to change, but James insists that she stay. Finally, she gets up to leave, telling James not to sleep.
Don't go back to sleep.
I won't.
The next morning, James ends up sleeping late. When he sees the time, he rushes to get up and get dressed. He runs out to get to his class on time. He finally reaches his college just as his professor, Zimmet, shuts the door. Zimmet quotes Shakespeare to talk about punctuality.
Better 3 hours too early than 1 minute too late.
James retorts, saying that his hand was on the door. Finally, Zimmet lets him in. James gets in, smiling at Petra as he walks to his chair. Zimmet begins by revisiting the philosophical challenges he's taught throughout the year, all centered on how to navigate the modern world.
I've done what I can for you. Now you have to go out and think on your own.
The students start challenging him, saying that he is a slave to logic. Some students mention that philosophy is really not valuable to real life. Zimmet doesn't agree with this and thoroughly explains how they are going to do better in life as philosophy students.
Fortunately, you're not. Most people.
He asks if anyone can recap their favorite thought experiment. One student brings up a past lesson involving a thought experiment. If a monkey were given a typewriter and unlimited time, it would eventually write a complete book. Even though the odds are small, considering it is for eternity, every case has a mathematical probability of happening.
Every event has some actual mathematical probability of really happening.
Next, another student brings up the trolley problem. An out-of-control trolley is speeding towards 5 people who are tied to the track. But there is a chance to pull the lever to change the direction of the trolley, which would result in one person dying. He asks if they would do it, and a student answers that it is better to save the lives of 5 people than 1.
If you're being utilitarian about it, you can argue that you did the right thing, letting 1 person die to save 5.
The student then changes the scenario. He asks if there is no lever to change the direction of the trolley, but instead, there is an obese man, and they can push him onto the track to save the lives of the 5 people. At this, the student gets startled and says no. Despite it being the same as the first logic, killing 1 person to save the other 5.
You're still sacrificing 1 person to save 5.
Another student then brings up the ignorant bliss paradox. A person is hanging from the highest tower, about to fall. The person calls 3 of his friends for help, but they can't help because it would result in them falling. The person falls and lives. But would it have been better if the person never tested his friends and stayed ignorant of the fact that they would leave him for dead? The students keep sharing their thoughts about it.
I'd want to know the truth. Cut your losses and walk on. You'll find other friends.
After this light moment, Zimmet introduces their final mental challenge. He asks the class to imagine the world being destroyed by a nuclear disaster.
Let's go old school. Say, atomic.
Instantly, the scene transitions into their imagined scenario. Mushroom clouds in the distance, chaos unfolding. Zimmet then leads the group to a survival bunker.
We're gonna have to take shelter here inside this reinforced bunker.
He then opens the door to the bunker, putting in a code. When they walk inside, it is a fully luxurious, functional house. He then takes them to the bedroom and explains that it only has room and resources for 10 people to last an entire year.
You see the problem? We're a group of 21, but the bunker's only built for 10.
James proposes that everyone should be allowed to stay, but Zimmet firmly points out that radiation won't subside for at least a year, and the limited oxygen supply inside the bunker makes it impossible to house more than 10 people.
If you try to cram anyone else in, you'll asphyxiate.
Back in reality, Georgina refuses to participate, calling it repulsive. Zimmet tells her that she must participate, but she refuses. She argues that it's inhumane to decide who lives and who dies. He then tells her that the number of people will be 20 if she goes out. This makes Georgina stay.
Well, I suppose I'm in.
Petra finds the whole setup deeply unsettling. She even decides to walk out of the exercise. She gathers her things and walks halfway to the door until Zimmet starts talking. He starts throwing her back by saying she could get an A+ if she stays, and that's something that no one has ever heard in a philosophy class. But when she refuses to be bribed, he then uses another method. He warns her that doing so will negatively impact James's final grade. Feeling pressured, Petra remains.
For example, James?
Zimmet then introduces the next part of the exercise. Each student is to draw a card that randomly assigns them a profession. These identities will help the group decide who is essential enough to survive in the bunker. He then suggests James pick the first card because he came late. Petra comments that punctuality is a virtue of the lonely, but Zimmet, ignoring her, starts with James.
Isn't punctuality the virtue of the lonely?
Strangely, Zimmit starts coughing as James pulls his card. He then moves to Petra and coughs once again when she picks up. Once everyone has their assigned role, Zimmit begins asking the class what profession they each received.
So, who are we? James?
In the thought experiment, James is assigned the role of a farmer, while Petra is revealed to be an engineer. The imagined scenario resumes, taking them back to the post-apocalyptic world. Every student starts revealing the roles they were given.
I'm a housekeeper.
I'm a fashion designer.
I'm a gelato maker.
There, the tone quickly shifts when Zimmit abruptly shoots a student who admits his profession is poetry. Zimmit coldly claims that while poetry has its place, survival isn't one of them. Petra, stunned, challenges his action, but he defends it by saying the poet wouldn't have been useful in the bunker and that he spared him from dying slowly in the radiation.
Was it any crueler than letting an atomic cloud peel his skin off?
Petra asks what Zimmit himself was. Zimmit himself is part of the exercise, though his role or value is intentionally kept secret. The students must decide if he's worth including in the final group of survivors. Each student begins arguing their usefulness to the group. Some skills are clearly practical, like medicine or engineering, while others spark debate.
You're such a good guy, but you're a housekeeper. It's low value.
When it comes time to choose the final person for the bunker, the decision is between Zimmit and an opera singer. Taking into account that Zimmit might have a hidden skill and the belief that opera might quickly become unbearable in a confined space, the group reluctantly votes in favor of Zimmit.
Mr. Zimmit's bringing some kind of secret utility that could really matter.
After the selection is finalized, the chosen students gather on one side while the others stay on the other. James then proposes they have 5 minutes of alone time as they are going to be scooped up together. So following this, everyone goes to spend time. Petra goes to James and he thanks her for staying.
What makes you think I stayed for you?
But the moment of peace is disrupted. The sound of gunshots shocks them, and they rush to the source only to find Zimmit has executed the remaining students who were left out. He simply tells them he is saving them from an agonizing death.
They didn't want to face the agony of death by radiation.
Petra is horrified. She tells James she no longer wants Zimmit among them. James then decides to do gardening, but he quickly comes up with a plan. He instructs the others to head to the bunker without Zimmit. Zimmit finally realizes what's going on and tries to follow, but before he can make it in, the others slam the door shut, locking him outside. Inside the bunker, the group starts to explore the space and settle in. They first go to the bathroom, then they see the other parts of the room.
Phototherapy? Daybed?
Later that night, Petra and James sleep together. James tells her that he would be able to do anything as long as she is by his side. After James falls asleep, Petra checks the entrance and finds Zimmit still there, weak and clearly suffering from radiation exposure. Before collapsing, he holds up a note for Petra. It says he's the only one who knows the code to exit the bunker. The rest of the group arrives just as Zimmit passes out. Unsure of whether the note is genuine or manipulation, they assume he's only trying to guilt them into letting him in. They want to try opening it, but that would mean dying from radiation, so they decide against it.
Let's find out.
No. You'll flush with radiation if it opens.
Georgina thinks he is only taunting them because he would have written the code instead of a note. They discuss the situation until finally they decide to wait and find out.
364 more days till we know who's right.
Since they're unable to open the bunker without the code, the group decides to stay put and survive the year as best they can. With limited resources, they begin to pass time using whatever they can find. Throughout the year, Petra finds herself returning to the sealed door, quietly grieving as she looks at Zimmit's lifeless body lying just beyond the glass. The guilt weighs on her heavily. Some play chess, some work out, some take care of themselves, but Petra can't seem to move on from Zimmit. As the year finally ends, the group eagerly prepares to leave the bunker. But when they try to exit, they discover the harsh truth. A code is required to open the door, and Zimmit had been telling the truth all along. They attempt everything they can to break out, hitting the glass with a gun repeatedly and searching for a manual override, but nothing works. Finally, the food runs out, and they share the last container. They try to live off whatever was left after that. One by one, they all die, starting with an aneurysm death. The group eats him to stay alive. Then someone kills himself, and finally, trapped as the oxygen slowly runs out, the rest die. Back to the classroom. Zemet explains that the group failed the exercise because they let emotion override logic. He reveals his hidden role. He was the one who built the bunker, and only he knew the exit code. With that, he gives the class a final takeaway. Despite everything, Zemet pushes the class into another simulation.
Don't worry about it. You'll do better in the next iteration.
Next iteration?
Though many students hesitate, they agree to continue for the sake of their grades. In this new scenario, the world is facing a catastrophic volcanic eruption. James asks what would be different this time. Zemet mentions that they can't expect everything to be the same and hands them a card. The students take their new cards. James remains an organic farmer, but now identifies as gay. Following this, Zemet tells him that apart from the roles they are given, they are supposed to give birth. James argues he has the equipment and can sleep with a woman despite being gay and asks them to vote for him. The students vote in his favor.
Whoever wants to vote for me?
Georgina is still an orthopedic surgeon, but she was on a trip to Uganda last week, which resulted in her having a probability of being infected with the Ebola virus. So now the students must decide whether to take the risk of getting infected with Ebola and keep her or not have an orthopedic surgeon.
Or who could just as easily infect you with the virus.
She argues that it is hardly likely she contracted the virus. She tells them healthcare comes first, but no one votes for her. She lashes out at Zemet, calling him mean, but he thinks he is helping her.
I only care whether I've stretched your brains to their largest possible size.
Next, Plum opens her note. She is a hedge fund manager who, because of a phobia about Armageddon, always travels with $5 million worth of diamonds, sapphires, gold, and platinum in hand.
And unlike paper money, it holds its value during war or famine.
Chips mentions she is also useful since she is a woman, so everyone voted for her. Next, Chips opens his card. He is a carpenter. James insists that a carpenter is needed after the apocalypse, so everyone votes for him. Petra is now a structural engineer who is also an electrical engineer, so everyone votes for her.
Who's also an electrical engineer.
Hard to argue with that.
Now, Andy is an electrician who has a rare disease that turns any type of injury in his body into bone. At the end, everything will turn to bone, and he will be able to move only his lips. So because of this, he is rejected.
Sounds like a losing battle.
After this, the rest start telling their roles to be voted on or not. Some roles are important, and some are not.
I have an IQ of 200.
I'm voting for Mitzi.
You're voting for everyone.
Finally, the poet stands to explain his role, and Zemet immediately shoots him, claiming his spot for himself. They don't have the exit code for him, so they can't refuse this.
We never got the exit code from him.
We still need what he knows.
Suddenly, an explosion starts. Georgina asks Zemet for the car keys and runs to the car. A few run toward the bunker, and the rest of the group tries to escape by car. But before they get far, a wave of volcanic ash and lava overtakes them. The group on foot finally reaches the bunker safely. Later that night, everyone gets in their beds to sleep. Petra gets up, looks for James, only to find him getting intimate with one of the other boys, Jack, leaving her stunned. Heartbroken after seeing James with someone else, Petra quietly leaves the room and sits alone, trying to process what just happened. He follows her to explain, calling from behind.
Petra, please.
The rest of the group asks what happened, and she reveals that she caught James and Jack in the act. Jack explains that even though it didn't say in the card that he is gay, they are also in the thought experiment of what they are in real life. Bonnie is surprised by this, but Jack reminds her that she met his boyfriend, who was in Cambridge.
My cousin.
I misunderstood for some reason. I apologize.
Then they begin discussing how they might repopulate the human race. Kavi, the midwife, starts pairing couples to keep their lineage. James and Jack are out of the question. Omaseed and Nelson are already interested in each other. It's crucial that Petra find a partner because she is ovulating. He suggests Zemet be paired with her because Nelson is already taken. The two men are gay, Chips is sterile, and Kebi's religion doesn't allow him to sleep with someone who is already involved with another person. This leaves only one person, and that is Zemet.
Which leaves Mr. Zemet.
Since James isn't interested, Petra walks to Zemet. She takes his hand and leads him away. James follows from behind, repeatedly telling her that he loves her, but there was no point in it.
Petra, just because I don't want to sleep with you anymore doesn't mean that I don't love you anymore.
The group then starts getting intimate. The volcano keeps erupting outside. Time passes, and after 10 weeks, no one in the bunker shows any signs of pregnancy. Kavi thinks that it is not happening because of stress.
Stress alone is enough to stop conception.
Zimmet thinks the priority is to have offspring. Growing impatient, Zimmet proposes that everyone switch partners and try again. To maximize their odds, every male needs to participate, including Jack and James.
And this time, all of the boys are going to have to contribute to maximize our odds.
The suggestion sparks outrage in Bonnie, who firmly refuses and tells him he's consistently wrong in everything he does. She tells him he can't force her to be with a guy she didn't choose or be with different guys. If he does, she will kill him. Offended and visibly angry, Zimmet storms out of the room. When he returns, he's holding a gun. He orders everyone to leave, except Bonnie.
Not you.
Unwilling to abandon her, Jack hides behind the door. Zimmet then starts giving a speech about how human beings were built with a design flaw, because they believe what they feel rather than what is. And this would mean her argument would lead them to extinction, so he can't let that happen.
I'll say what I want. If you don't like it, shoot me.
As Zimmet raises the weapon to shoot Bonnie, Jack jumps him. Bonnie quickly picks up the gun. A struggle breaks out, and Jack manages to stab Zimmet with a pencil. Injured and consumed by rage, Zimmet runs to the entrance and forces the bunker door open. A surge of volcanic ash and fire rushes in, killing everyone instantly.
No!
Following this, the scenario ends, snapping back once more to the classroom. After they come back, Chips asks for one more round because they failed this one, but everyone seems exhausted.
We can do better.
James, now deeply suspicious, asks Zimmet why he had coughed during the distribution of the identity cards earlier. Once when he picks his card and then when Petra picks her card. Zimmet brushes it off, claiming he had a cold, but James doesn't buy it. He tells Zimmet that grades mean nothing to him, then pretends to walk out, only to snatch Zimmet's box and run. Outside the classroom, James opens the box and discovers that Zimmet has been manipulating the experiment the entire time. He had rigged the roles, especially for James and Petra. The box has different compartments, and there was never an option for him and Petra other than a farmer who is gay and a structural and electrical engineer, respectively. Furious, James asks why he would do such a thing.
I get that you never thought I was smart enough for your class. Does it really offend you that much that I'm here?
James thinks that this was a vendetta. Zimmet, unfazed, mentions the allegory of Plato's cave. James starts explaining what it is, saying that a person who is always chained in a cave without seeing anything other than that would think that is reality. One day he is unchained and realizes there are other people too. His whole idea of what was real was just an illusion. Zimmet tells him that person sounds like James and explains how he relates to it. He insists that he was simply trying to push James out of his comfortable bubble and prepare him for the harshness of the real world.
I wouldn't call that a vendetta, James.
But James isn't convinced. He challenges Zimmet to run a third scenario, one that's fair and untouched. The rest of the class supports James, leaving Zimmet with no choice but to go along with it. But he changes the role of James.
Just one thing this time, you are a florist.
In the next version of the scenario, the students once again find themselves on a fictional island. Everything seems peaceful here. As they arrive, Zimmet quietly slips away to the bunker to check things out. Inside, he secretly takes a gun for himself and hides the rest of the weapons. Though he hears a faint sound echoing through the bunker, he ignores it and continues with his plan. Back outside, Petra approaches Zimmet. Unexpectedly, she asks if she can hug him because she understands it has been hard for him. She then gives him a warm hug.
Because I know how hard this has been on you.
Then she turns to the rest of the group and asks for their trust. This time, she wants to be the one to choose who gets to stay in the bunker. After some hesitation, everyone agrees to let her lead. As the selection begins, Petra makes unexpected choices. She picks people who don't seem like obvious survival candidates, like a poet and an opera singer, ignoring Zimmet's past logic about practicality. She even leaves herself out of the group and gives the final spot to James. Zimmet warns that the group she selected is unlikely to survive. According to him, they lack the necessary skills to maintain life in the bunker. But Petra calmly responds, saying that survival isn't just about technical knowledge. At the very least, this group will be able to enjoy their time together. And as she puts it, creative souls might be more likely to form deep bonds and possibly even start families. For every student, she has an explanation, and Zimet keeps deducting 1 grade from her points for each of them.
Are you willing to go through life defending yourself every time someone checks your transcript?
The chosen group heads to the bunker. Angry at being left out once again, Zimet reaches into his bag, expecting to pull out the gun he had stashed, but it's gone. Petra calmly steps forward and tells him she removed it earlier during their conversation. Zimet snatches it back from her and quickly aims at James, ready to fire. But before he can act, James lifts a rifle, one Zimet had thought he'd hidden safely in the bunker. The sound Zimet had ignored earlier was James discovering and quietly watching him the whole time. Zimet tries to regain control by reminding everyone that they'll still need the exit code to leave the bunker when the time comes, and he's the only one who knows it. But to his shock, Bonnie steps forward and recites the code from memory. She had carefully observed Zimet using it during the previous scenario. Defeated and outmaneuvered, Zimet walks away without another word. James asks Petra to get in, but she gives her spot to Bonnie. Bonnie refuses. Petra decides the group should go on a boat to find a spot out of the detonation zone. That's when Chips, one of the selected bunker members, casually mentions he has the keys. Petra approaches him to retrieve the keys, but Chips quickly pulls her into the bunker, slips out, and locks the door behind her. He then runs off to the boat with the rest of his group, leaving Petra trapped as they speed toward the island without her. Inside the bunker, the group spends their year in surprisingly high spirits. With no real responsibilities and a shared sense of peace, they fill their days with music, art, and simple joys.
And once a month, we had an original poem.
Even an atomic blast can't rob the future from the past.
James eventually opens up to Petra, telling her how deeply he cares for her. But though she appreciates him, she isn't able to return those feelings. Something holds her back. She couldn't say, "I love you," and instead started saying what she liked about him.
I like your nose.
But things are still not how they were. When the year finally ends, the group emerges from the bunker, expecting devastation. Instead, they find the island untouched. There's no sign of destruction, no trace of nuclear fallout. Despite Zimet's grim prediction that they'd never survive without technical skills, they've made it through. But now, with all their supplies gone, they know their survival is limited.
But since you're mostly deficient in skill sets of practical value, you can never get back to Jakarta, because where you are, only the smartest survive.
Just as they begin to process this, a nuclear missile crashes onto the beach nearby. Having already lived a full, meaningful year together, the group accepts their fate. James approaches the warhead, ready to activate it. At that moment, Zimet appears, worn down, dirty, and carrying a gun. He had been hiding in a cave all year, surviving on his own. He threatens to kill James and take control. But in a surprising show of unity, the rest of the group steps in front of James, shielding him. Together, they choose to end things on their own terms. They activate the warhead and are instantly killed. Back in the classroom, the simulation ends. They discuss the simulation, with Chips revealing he had a thought process of his own, and that's why he got out of the bunker, to have 6 girls for himself.
I had a girl for each night of the week, and on the 7th night, I rested.
Zimet ends the class after this. The students quietly leave, leaving their textbooks on his table. Only Petra stays behind. She closes the door and confronts Zimet, accusing him of using the exercise to target her and James.
Taking out your issues with me and James.
She sees through it all. Zimet was never objective. His personal feelings had clouded everything. It's revealed that he had been romantically involved with Petra in the past and was using the simulations to lash out at James, whom he viewed as unworthy. Petra calmly tells Zimet that intelligence alone isn't enough when it comes to surviving or being happy. She then makes her feelings clear. She loves James. She sits next to him, making lighthearted jokes to lighten the moment. He tries to convince her that they would be good for each other. She agrees with that, but says it cannot happen. He walks away and she follows him. She kisses him. He looks at her with tear-filled eyes as she says her final farewells.
You're a very good teacher, Eric.
Left alone in his office, Zimet sits in silence, lost in thought. He pulls open a drawer, takes out a revolver, and then a single gunshot echoes in the background.